everyone out there. How are you? I'm sure you're doing very well. I'm also doing good. And again, see the COVID restrictions. Stay home, stay safe. Today I've come up with another video that is based on a fish. The chapter is A Fishy Story. This is an extract from Jerome K. Jerome's humorous book, Three Men in a Boat. The narrator and his two friends, George and Harris, along with their dog, Montmorency, are on a boating holiday on the river Thames. One day in the little village inn, they see the most remarkable fish in a glass case. Read on to find out more about the fish. So they're talking about these three people, the narrator, George and Harris, his friends, and their dog, who went on a boating holiday and what all they see. So the lesson goes, we stayed 2 days in Streatley. The neighborhood of Streatley and Goring is a great fishing center. So now who is we here? Here it is narrator and his two friends George and Harris, and they are staying for 2 days in Streatley. It is a place, and they are saying that Streatley and Goring are a great place for fishing. On the second evening, George and I and the dog went for a walk to Wallingford. Coming back, we stopped at a little riverside inn. We went in and sat down. So now, who is talking? The narrator says that he, along with his friend George and their dog, they went for a walk to Wallingford. Wallingford again is the name of a place. And they say while they were coming back, they saw a small inn. What is an inn? It is a motel. It is a small restaurant. And it is not very huge, so it is called as an inn. So they went inside and sat. There was an old fellow there and we began chatting. He told us that it had been a fine day that day, and we told him that it had been a fine day the day before. And then we all told each other that we thought it would be a fine day next day. So now what happened? When they came to the small inn, they met an old man there. Fellow means a man. They met an old man and they started chit-chatting. And the man said, it is a good day. And both George and the narrator, they said it was a great day yesterday. And three of them, they wished that the coming day would be good. It means they all are very positive people. So let's read further. After that, we told that we were strangers in the neighborhood and that we were going away the next morning. So now when they were talking, they informed the old fellow that they both were the strangers. They are just the visitors here. They are not residing in this place, and that they are going back the next morning. Then there was a pause in the conversation and our eyes wandered around the room. You know, when you visit some new place, you always look around, no? Imagine you're in a new restaurant. What will you do? You will check out all the places. You will see what all sceneries are there, how's the ambience, how the chairs, how the table laid, right? So they were also wandering. They finally rested upon a dusty glass case fixed up high on the wall and containing a trout. It fascinated me, that trout. It was such a monstrous fish. So now what happened? When they were looking around, what did they see? They saw that there was an old glass case which was not very clean. It was dusty and it was having a trout. Trout is a kind of a fish. So that glass case had a fish, and the kind of the fish was a trout. And that particular fish fascinated me. It surprised me. It captivated my attention. And it was such a monstrous fish. The meaning of monstrous is basically very scary. But here in this context, it says very huge fish. Trouts are not very huge. But in this lesson, it is shown that the fish that was hung on the wall was very, very huge, very monstrous. Ah, said the old gentleman, following my eyes. Fine fellow that, isn't he? Quite uncommon, I murmured, and George asked how much it weighed. So now, when they were talking or thinking about this monstrous fish, the old man who was sitting, he asked that, don't you think that it is a very great thing? And then George said that of course it is very uncommon. And then he asked that how much would be the weight of this particular fish? 18 pounds, 6 ounces, said our friend, rising and taking down his coat. Yes, he continued, it was 16 years ago that I caught him just below the bridge with a minnow. You don't see many fish of this size now. Well, good night, gentlemen. To George's question, This old fellow replied that the weight of the fish is 18 pounds and 6 ounces. As we have kgs and grams, in abroad it is pounds and ounces. So he says it was 18 pounds and 6 ounces, and it was he who caught it 16 years back from under the bridge with the help of a minnow. Now what is a minnow? Minnow is a small fish which he used as a bait. Bait means chara. Bait means the way with which he caught it. And he says that nowadays you don't get this size of fish. And after saying this, he wished good night and he went. And out he went and left us alone. Let's read further. We could not take our eyes off the fish after that. It really was a fine fish. We were still looking at it when the local carrier, who had just stopped at the inn, came to the door of the room, and he also looked at the fish. So now what happened? After the old fellow went, both the narrator and the George, they were looking at the fish. And while they were looking at it and were admiring and were saying that it was a fine fish. Here fine means a very good fish. There came a carrier. Who is a carrier? Carrier here is a porter who carried things. Since it was an inn, so he must have come to drop things. When he came in the door of the room, he saw us looking at it and he also started looking at the fish. Good-sized trout that, said George, turning round to him. So now George turned to the carrier and he said that, don't you think it is a very good-sized trout? Ah, you may well say that, sir, replied the man, and then he added, maybe you weren't here, sir, when that fish was caught. So now when George was admiring and was discussing it to the carrier, he said that, of course, it is a very, very nice fish, and I am sure you were not here when this fish was caught. No, we told him, we are strangers in the neighborhood. So both of them, George and the narrator, they told the carrier that they were actually the strangers. They never resided here and they have just come here. Then he said, it was nearly 5 years ago that I caught that trout, said the carrier. Oh, was it you who caught it? Said I. So now what happened? Now this carrier is boasting off. He is also saying the same thing. He said it was 5 years ago that I caught this fish. And to a surprise, the narrator said, was it you who caught it? Yes, sir, replied the fellow. I caught him one Friday afternoon, and the remarkable thing about it that I caught it with a fly. Well, you see, he weighed 26 pounds. Good night, gentlemen. Good night. So now, my dear students, another man, another story. He said that it was he who has caught the fish, and it was a Friday afternoon. The old fellow said that it was 16 years back that he got the fish from under the bridge. Now this man, the carrier who has come, it says it was a Friday afternoon 5 years back, and it was he who caught it with the help of a fly, and the weight was 26 pounds. Now see, there are two stories till now that we have learned. So the first story was told by old fellow that 16 years back he got it with the help of a minnow from under the bridge, and the weight was 18 pounds and 6 ounces. And this second man, the carrier, he said he got it 5 years back on Friday afternoon with the help of a fly, and it weighed 26 pounds. Now let's read further. 5 minutes afterward, a third man came in and described how he had caught the trout early one morning, and then he left. And a middle-aged individual came in and he sat down by the window. So now what happened? There came a third person. He said that he caught this fish early one morning, and after this he left. Then there came a fourth person who was a middle-aged person. Middle-aged means he was neither young nor old. So he came inside, he sat down. None of us spoke for a while. Then George turned to him and said, I beg your pardon. My friend, I would be obliged if you would tell us how you caught that trout up there. So now they are also playing smart. Now they both have understood that everyone is making up a story. So what happened? When this middle-aged person came, nobody talked for a while. But then George went up to him and asked that we will be happy if you will tell us how you have caught this fish. Much obliged means we will be really very grateful that if you will share your experience that how this trout was caught up here by you. Who told you I caught that trout? Was a surprised question. We said that nobody had told us, but we felt that it was he who would have caught it. So now when they asked this middle-aged person, he was very surprised. So he said that, who told you that I have caught it? Both the people said that we don't know, nobody has told us, but we actually felt it. Well, it's almost remarkable thing, answered the stranger, laughing because you're quite right. I caught it. But imagine your guessing is like that. Dear me, it's really the most remarkable thing. So now this middle-aged person was feeling relieved a bit because he came to know that nobody told them that who has caught it. So he was happy and he said, I am very, very happy that you guessed it correct. That yes, it was me who has caught this fish, and it was really a remarkable thing. Remarkable means it was a great experience. And then he told us how it had taken him half an hour to catch it and how it had broken his rod. He said he had weighed it carefully when he reached home and it was 34 pounds. So now, my dear students, another man, another story. So he says it took half an hour for him to catch the fish, and the fish was very heavy because of the weight of the fish. The rod with which he was catching the fish, it broke, and the weight as per him was 34 pounds. So now we know about three ways. Number one, 18 pounds and 6 ounces, then 26 pounds, and last is 34 pounds. When he was gone, the owner of the inn came in. We told him the various stories we heard about his trout, and we all laughed. Imagine Jim Bates and Joe Muggles and Mr. Jones and old Billy Maunders all telling you that had caught it. Ha ha ha. Well, that's good, said the honest old fellow. So after the middle-aged person went, there came the owner of that inn, and both George and the narrator, they told him all the stories they have heard. And to this, all of them laughed. And the owner said, imagine Jim Bates, Joe Muggles, Mr. Jones, old Billy Maunders. All are these the people, those who came and told the stories. They said they're coming and telling up you all the stories. It is really, really very funny and it is all good. Then he told us the real history of the fish. It was he who caught it years ago when he was a boy. When he had left the room, George and I again turned our gaze upon the fish. It was really an astonishing trout. So now what happened? Now the owner of the fish told that it was he who caught it a long back when he was a young man or a young boy. And once the owner was gone, they both started looking at it. Gazing means looking at it. And again, they started admiring it because they were really fascinated by the fish. It excited George so much that he climbed up on the back of the chair to get a better view of it. And then the chair slipped. And the George clutched widely the trout case to save himself. And down it came with a crash. George and the chair on top of it. So now what happened? When the owner also went, both the men, they were so fascinated that they were looking at it. But George couldn't control his excitement. So what he did, he quickly went on the chair back, and what did he do? He started looking at it. And then what happened? The chair slipped because his weight went on the wrong side. The chair slipped, and in order to protect himself, he caught hold of that particular glass case. And what happened? Since it was just hung, there he came along with his chair down on the floor. You haven't injured the fish, have you? I cried in alarm, rushing up. I hope not, said George, rising cautiously and looking about. So now what happened? When both of them, this glass case and George, they were down, the narrator hurriedly asked that I'm sure that you haven't done anything to the fish. And he rushed towards him. And then George said, I wish so. And he was getting up very carefully. Cautiously means carefully. But he had. The trout lay shattered into 1,000 fragments. I say thousands, but I did not count them. We found it very strange that a trout should break up into little pieces like that. But then we discovered why it did. So now what happened? When this glass case came down, both of them became very scared. And they were thinking that something should not have happened to the fish. But what happened? It broke into small pieces. Fragments mean small pieces. And there were about 1,000 of it. And to their surprise, it was not possible for a fish to break into 1,000 pieces. So what did they find out? The fish was made up of plaster of Paris. It was not actually a fish. It was something that was made out of plaster of Paris. Plaster of Paris is a material like cement. Nowadays, a lot of things are made of plaster of Paris. So, my dear students, this all was a fishy story. It was all a fake story. Actually, that trout was not a fish. It was a fish which was made of plaster of Paris. All the stories, they all were lies. That's why the chapter is named as a fishy story. Fishy means something that is suspicious. Sometimes you can say, if you find some situation that is not very clear to you, or you find something doubtful, you can say this is a fishy story. So in crux, we can say a fishy story revolves around three friends who went on a holiday and how they went to an inn and saw a very beautiful, magnificent fish which was hung in a glass case on a wall of a small inn, and how different people came and told the stories. Like the first person, who was an old fellow, came and said that he caught it 16 years back with the help of a minnow from under the bridge, and it weighed 18 pounds and 6 ounces. Then there came a carrier who said that he caught it 5 years back with the help of a fly, and it weighed 26 ounces. Then there came another man who said, I got it. Then there came the fourth person, who was a middle-aged person, and then he told his story of catching and how fascinating and how remarkable this fish was, as it weighed 36 pounds, and how this huge fish and heavy fish has broken his rod. Then there came the owner, and then he told that he caught this fish. But these people came to know the reality that it was actually not a fish, it was a fish which was made out of plaster of Paris. That was all from Fishy Story. I hope you all must have understood. If you have any problems, any queries, please write down in the comment section, and do let me know which next topic to be covered. Adios.